Absolutely. For your benefit. So you can go onto my website and learn if you don't understand what we talked about the first time. All right, I think we're in business. I think it's working. I know. It's wonderful, isn't it? Technology at its finest. I will turn the lights off. Hey, guys, enough. Remember, whatever you say is now recorded. So, we are getting into, hey, guys, we are getting into our last, I guess, big topic on evolution. We have talked about natural selection. We have talked about speciation. We have talked about the patterns of evolution. Now we're going to talk about the evidences for evolution. So, the stuff that evolutionary biologists have collected and say, you don't believe in evolution? Well, here are evidences for evolution. Okay? So, first thing, this term should look familiar. Homologous. What does homologous mean?
Same.
The same? Yep, we know the prefix HOMO means the same. Now, homologous structures, guys, are structures that organisms have with similar structure but can be different function. Okay? So it says here, similar structure found in more than one species that may or may not have the same function in each species. On the next page, when you flip it, don't flip it, actually, I think it's right below it. You'll be able to see it. If you were able to compare the anatomy of our arm versus, I'm going to pick some random other animals, our arm, a lizard's leg, a frog leg, a bat wing, a bird wing, okay, you will see that these limbs, guys, share the same bone structure. However, do they look identical? No. Okay. Question is, if you're looking at the bone structure of a human arm, why is it going to look a little bit different than the bone structure of a frog's leg? Joe?
Because we use it differently.
Yeah, we use it differently. Okay, we're not using our arms to hop around. Okay? Now, keep in mind, if we were to dissect a frog leg, take the muscles off and just look at the bones, they have the same bones that we have, just maybe in a little bit different place, I guess, or a little bit different structure. So this is what indicates common ancestry. All right? So if we were to look at our homologous structures with a chimpanzee, or we were to look at our homologous structures with a frog, which would look more similar? Chimpanzee. Why? Because we know genetically they are extremely similar to us, about 99% of similar DNA. Okay? So, you see a big term here. It says pentadactyl limb is a common example. I'm going to show you the next page, guys, is what a pentadactyl limb is. So here are pentadactyl limbs. So here's what I was talking about. If we look at the bat wing, if we look at a monkey arm, is there a platypus? No, that's a mole. Would you have liked there to be a platypus up there? Yeah, sorry. We have an anteater. We have a dolphin fin. However, in a horse leg, if you are to compare the structure, the homologous structures, you can see the very, very, very close similarities here. Okay? So let's go through and name. I'm going to test your anatomy skills here. What bone is this in our arm?
The humerus.
The humerus. Very good. Do these have humeri? Humeri, would that be the plural? Yes. Humerus is?
No, humeri.
Humeri, we'll go with humeri because it sounds cooler. So, humerus, humerus, humerus. Oh, it's freaking out.
Keep going.
Humerus, 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 humerus. All right. Now, I know. Humerus. If we look at our lower arm, what bones are these? Ulna and? Ulna and? Ooh. Starts with an R? Starts with an R?
Radius.
Radius. Ulna and 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 radius. Then we can go into carpals and metacarpals, which are the hand and or ankle bones.
Oh, is that where they're round?
What's that?
Is that where we have like bumps on our heads? The rounded part of it?
Right here?
Yeah.
Those are called condyles. They're the bottom parts here, ulnar and radius. So right in here, in this part, those are where you're going to find your carpals. Okay? So as you're seeing, guys, then we go into our phalanges, which are our fingers. There they are. 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 Okay? And it's not just these organisms that have these. Okay? So, homologous structures or comparative anatomy is what we're talking about here. So any questions with that? All right, lovely. Let's move onward. All right. So the main point of homologous structures, it says organisms have similar structures that are used for different things. This points to common ancestry. All right. So divergent evolution. So this is what we talked about yesterday or last class about divergent evolution. Divergent evolution points to a common ancestor, which then branches off to form separate species. All right. Then it says, side note, it kind of goes into what analogous structures are, which you should know what those are. It says parts that are used for similar purpose but don't have the similar structure. Just want to make you aware of the difference between those two. Okay? Shoot.
Do species like lose limbs per se if they don't need them? Like
The use it or lose it theory.
yeah. Like, because
We're going to talk about
our, like I think not our kidneys, but like what's the organ?
the
that
appendix,
Yeah.
the vestigial structures. We're going to talk about that in a second. All right.
What's like,
Why
what's
did you
like
get the appendix full?
Why would you? Because it can explode and it's full of bacteria. And if the bacteria gets into your internal organs, you could die. You can go septic, it's called. We good with this slide? All right, let's move onward. Here we go. Next one. Developmental similarities or embryology. Embryology, guys, if you look at this, this always fascinates me. If we're looking at a fish embryo, a turtle embryo, a bird embryo, a pig embryo, and a man and an embryo of a human being. Can you guys see the similarities between them?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Tails, pharyngeal gill slits, eyes. So you see that they all are extremely, extremely similar. Okay? And as these embryos develop and differentiate, that's when you're going to start to see what they really are. Okay? So let's look at the later stages here. Whoop, if we look at the later stages of the embryo development, you can start to see how they differentiate. But based on which two organisms up here do you think are the most closely related?
The turtle and the bird.
Turtle and the bird? I'm going to disagree with that.
Pig man.
Pig man. Yeah.
Pig and pig.
The pig and the man. So, based on A, being able to see the similarities, we're going to get into classification next before we end this evolution unit. But pig and a man, guys, they are both mammals. All right? So they are more closely related to each other than any of these are.
turtle?
Okay? Turtle's an amphibian. Yep. All right.
I thought it was a reptile. The turtle from over the head says it's a reptile.
Oh, yeah, it is a reptile. Ooh, I made a mistake. Busted. What's up?
I don't know where I heard this, but isn't it like a factor thing that we share more DNA with bees than like even apes or something?
No, we don't. Nope. The chimpanzee is the closest relative to us with about 98.5 to 99% of similar DNA.
Which one? Pig?
Chimpanzees.
Oh,
All right. So the main point of developmental similarities, which is embryology, says embryologists have found that animals look similar in very early stages of embryonic development. The fact that we look so similar so early on in our lives supports the idea that we had a common ancestor. Okay? All right, I will wait. We good? I heard a no, so I'm hesitating. We good now? All right. Going back to your 9th grade sciences here. I knew it would come in handy somewhere. This is something you should know by now, especially I bet you in 9th grade they hammered on this, the law of superposition. What does the law of superposition tell us?
Law of superposition states that older layers are under new layers.
There you go. You got it. Older layers are underneath the newer layers. Now, there are times where there's inversions where the older layers will flip, but I'm going to say generally and most commonly older layers are under new layers, which means fossils found deeper in the earth are older. Fossils found closer to the top are younger. Okay? So, as Quinn just so elegantly stated, the rock layers are arranged in a time sequence with the oldest at the bottom and the youngest at the top, unless unless later processes disturb this arrangement. This means that in general, the further you dig down, the older the fossils are. So this is really cool, guys, what scientists are able to do. They're able to go through and make a chronological, an arrangement of these fossils. So they can actually get a fossil on the deepest layer, then they can find a fossil a little bit further up, and they can actually put these fossils next to each other and say, all right, after, let's say, 5 million years, look at the changes in this fossil that have occurred. We know it was a very similar species because it hasn't totally changed, but look at the small change here, the small change here, the small change there, and then they can continue, guys, to find fossils and fossils and fossils, and they can create a timeline of change of these organisms through time. So, a lot of people that try to disprove evolution will try to say that this isn't true, all right? That these fossils are just simply different species. They haven't changed. All of a sudden, these species, there they were, and they haven't changed. No, that's simply not the fact, guys. Organisms change through time, and we actually have this chronological timeline of fossils to show that these organisms are changing. Okay? Nice, beautiful layer of some rock strata. Picture, I should say. All right, so the main point, law of superposition. The further down in the layers of the rock that you go, the older the rock and anything preserved are. So paleontologists can see structural differences between older and younger fossils of similar organisms. That's what I was saying before. Okay? You can see a timeline of the change in these species based on their fossils. And there are numerous examples of this. We good? Whoop. Did I miss one? No, I guess we didn't. All right. Here's what Andre asked the question about before. All right. He asked the question about, I'm going to paraphrase what he said, that is it true that if you don't use a certain appendage or organ, it disappears? Well, there's no yes or no answer to that question. All right. It's not like you use it, you keep it, don't use it, you lose it. It's not that cut and dry. However, it leads beautifully into the next evidence for evolution, which are called vestigial structures. You will see this term a lot in whatever biology classes you take past high school. All right? And there are lots of examples of vestigial structures. Vestigial structures, guys, as it says down here, are structures that organisms have that is not essential for their life. All right? It's a structure that I'm not going to say isn't used, but it is not used to the same effect that their ancestors used it. A very common example is the whale pelvis and the whale femur. If you are able to look at whales and dissect whales, guess what, guys? They have a pelvis and they have rudimentary femurs, which says what about their evolution?
They walked up.
Yeah, they once walked. Okay? Now, think about this. Again, you can go online and you can find all these arguments against evolution. They're out there, sure. The argument is that, well, whales use their pelvis as a birth canal. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Please understand, guys, that vestigial structures, the definition is not structures that they have but don't use. The definition of a vestigial structure is structures that organisms have, but A, either the structure has gotten smaller due to lack of use, or vestigial structures are structures that aren't used in the same way as they used to be used. Okay? So on the bottom it says the whale pelvis is not necessary for the whale to move or survive. It is simply a structure left over from the previous ancestor that did need it. Okay? There are lots and lots of examples of vestigial structures. Anyone know any example? Think about the human body.
The muscles that we use to hold the ears with.
Perfect. Yep, absolutely. We have muscles. How many of you can do that? Can sit there and... I used to be able to. Ready? I'd probably look like a fool. Am I doing it? No. Darn it. Some people can sit there and literally wiggle their ears. All right? There's muscles attached to ears. Why can we do that? What do you think we needed to do that before? Yeah. Yeah. Hear something, move our ears to adjust to where it's coming from. What can we do now that we don't need to actually move our ears? Turn our necks. Okay. Let's think. Lakeisha, what do you want to say? Exactly. Appendix guys are considered vestigial. Remember, if you go online, like I said, you will find an argument for anti-evolutionists that say, well, there's a use to an appendix. Of course there's a use to an appendix. However, do we need, as Homo sapiens, do we need an appendix now to survive? No. Actually, people get them removed if they have appendicitis. Don't need it. All right? What the idea was behind the appendix was our common ancestors used it when they had a completely different diet than we do. When they ate more unsanitary foods, I should say, the appendix was just there to take bacteria in. It's super bacteria ridden. Okay? Good. Appendix would be one. What else are some other ones that humans have? Nope. Gallbladder we definitely need. You can live without it. I see your argument based. Yep. I see your point based on the definition that I gave you. But I don't think a gallbladder is vestigial because it produces bile, and bile is used for digestion. Okay.
I read somewhere that, like, in the way distant future, humans won't need to smell anything anymore.
Wow. I never heard that.
Why wouldn't we need to know?
I've never heard that.
We don't need it to survive.
You're right, but it's one of our major senses, and it. I'd be shocked.
No, smell again. Smell. Oh.
Jack.
Oh, we don't need to breathe.
Say what? Tailbone. Very good. All right. And again, there will be an argument. I keep going back to the counter argument. I like to kind of nip this in the bud here. Yeah, guys, there are muscles that attach, certain muscles that do attach to the tailbone. However, tailbones do get removed. If you break a tailbone, you're going to get those bones removed. All right? Tailbones, we don't have tails. All right? Anyone else have any vestigial organs or vestigial structures on humans that we don't use?
Is it gender? Can they be gender specific?
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you're going to say. You want me to say it for you?
Yeah.
Male nipples. Is that what you're going to say? Yeah. Why do guys have nipples? Yeah. You're pulling out a little quote there? Well, we were gender neutral.
I was a girl.
I'm gonna. So let me add one more. Let me add one more to this list before we move on. When you guys, how many of you have a dog or a cat at home? Or even if you don't, you've seen this before. Dog or a cat gets scared. What happens to their fur? Stands up. Dog or a cat gets cold. What happens to their fur? It puffs out. All right. When we get scared, or when we whoa, no, I wasn't going there.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
It's going to be an excellent first posting on the website with Jared shouting that out. So, hey guys, let's reel it back in, please. When we get scared, when we get cold, what happens?
We shiver.
Or we get goosebumps. We get goosebumps. All right? Which is our hair. There's tiny muscles in our skin called erector pili muscles. When we get scared or cold, we don't have a lot of hair, guys. So the fact that when we get cold, our erector pili muscles are going to try to erect our hair. Is that going to do any good? No. All right. So there's lots of examples of vestigial structures. But I'm going to move on now. So any questions on those? So structures that organisms have that have been minimalized. Okay? So here we go. Here's the main point. Remnants of structures that may have had important functions in an ancestral species but have no clear function in some of the modern descendants. Usually reduced in size, and just examples that I gave, human tailbones, appendix, whale pelvis. Another really cool one, I'll add one more, in pythons. If you, again, are to ever look at a python skeleton, guess what, guys? They have femurs. They have femurs embedded within. So what does that mean about their descendants? They once walked.
Is that what salamanders come from?
Well, I'm sure they definitely share a common ancestor, but how are we doing with this one? Good to go? No? Are you even? All right. Here we go. This is a cool one. Transitional species. So this ties back in, guys. I guess this would have made more sense if I put it right next to fossils. But transitional species, like I had said, if we're going back to fossil evidence, the fossil evidence, gentlemen, the fossil evidence, we can lay down the fossils that have been dug out from different layers of the strata and see the change through time. Transitional species are species where we can actually say, we can lay the fossils down and say, oh, this is a species that has both characteristics of a bird and a reptile. All right? This is a very famous transitional species, the Archaeopteryx. Wait till I show you the fossil picture of the Archaeopteryx. So you can already see it. It's in your packet. So it was a small with a wingspan of about half a meter and weighed about 325 grams. Not that big. All right. So put it this way. 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So this is way less than that. Way less than it was less than a pound. Its feathers were similar to those of flying birds, but its skeleton closely resembled that of a small carnivorous dinosaur. The brain was relatively large for an animal of that time. Was Archaeopteryx a feathered dinosaur, or an ancestral bird, or neither, or both? So let's look at that picture.
That's sick.
Skeleton resembles. What's that? The skeleton resembles a small carnivorous dinosaur. Yes. It died, and it's just due to yeah. So hey guys. So based on the skeleton, it resembled a reptile, or carnivorous dinosaur, and based on the feathers, you're seeing this transition. So when you look at birds now, all birds, guys, have a common ancestor of a specific dinosaur, a reptile. Birds evolved from reptiles. Okay?
Look at its tail. It's scary.
All right. So the main point of transitional species is this. There are organisms in the fossil record that seem to be in transition. All organisms that are alive could be considered transitional species if there are genetic variations in that species' gene pool. All right? So guess what? We're going to be a transitional species one day. So they're going to be able to go into a graveyard or find a Homo sapien fossil millions and millions and millions of years from now and say, oh, look at this strange skeleton. Oh, I can tell that it's a transitional species because we can then say, we can lay other fossils down and say, look at this step-by-step change that has occurred within this species. Not yet. We're technically not a transitional species yet because we are still here. Okay? Yeah, in order to be a transitional species, generally speaking, you need to be extinct. Okay? All right. I think this is the last one. There's one more. All right, molecular similarities, which, hey guys, shh. Molecular similarities are DNA. This is one thing that Charles Darwin did not know about, did not have when he came up with his theory of evolution. All right? He had no idea about DNA. DNA wasn't even seen or discovered until the 1950s. He came up with this theory of evolution in the 1850s. All right? This just kind of cements the theory of evolution. So it says the more closely related two organisms are, the more similar their molecular structures are, the more similar their DNA is. So ancestral primate. If we are able to collect bones, we can get the DNA structure, like Neanderthals. Guess what, guys? We have mapped the genome of Neanderthals. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals lived side by side for a small period of time. There's even theories out there that support the idea that humans and Neanderthals actually made it at one point. Okay? So we can find, if we can find bones, we can figure out what the DNA structure was and compare it to ours. So ancestral primate, 92% similar, but then you can see here, millions of years ago, all the way to present, chimpanzees are 98.2 similar, gorillas are 97.7% DNA similar, and orangutans have about 96.3 of similar DNA. So based on that, we could figure out which organism we are most closely related to, and it is a chimpanzee. Okay? So the main point is the more closely related organisms are, the more similarity they have on a molecular level. So their DNA is more similar, meaning that their proteins are more similar. You guys should remember that, right? Protein synthesis. DNA is going to be the template for that. Based on the DNA, the RNA gets made. From the RNA, we are going to be able to make proteins. All right. I've never seen that movie, so I don't quite know how. Are we good with this slide? No. Yes. All right.